Alrighty, I might get us started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and final session of our area coded series. I am so sad to be wrapping this up. It's been so fun hearing from so many incredible artists from Western Sydney, who have really shown what it is to advocate for themselves and others, and to also put themselves out there while staying grounded in their values. So today we are very honored to have another outstanding artist based in Western Sydney, Jason Wing. You might have seen some of Jason's work around town. Jason has had decades of experiences up his sleeves. So he'll be speaking to us about how to sustain your practice even when you've quote unquote made it, including the importance of maintaining networks and connections to your community, passing on knowledge, and managing transitions throughout different career stages. So I'm personally very excited for this. Next slide. So I'd like to begin today's session by acknowledging and paying respects to the rightful custodians of the many First Nations lands upon which this online event will be streamed and received. I also want to acknowledge any First Nations people currently joining us today. We recognize all custodians of country throughout all lands, waters, and territories, and pay respect to First Nations communities, ancestors, and elders. Sovereignty was never ceded. And please do feel free to drop in the chat below which country you're joining us from. So my name is Emma. I'm joining you today from cloudy, not rainy anymore though, Darug country. I am NAVA's professional development coordinator, and we've also got Jane from UTP and of course Jason on here, both of whom you will hear from very soon. I just want to do some quick housekeeping, reminding everyone that this session will be live interpreted today by our wonderful interpreters, Imran and Jerry. If you are requiring their support today, you can pin them to your screen by just clicking on the three dots in the right corner of their video. They'll be switching out every 15 minutes, so I would recommend pinning them both to your screen. We are also live captioning today with our captioner, Donna. And please also keep in mind that we are recording today's session. If at any point you have a question that you would like to ask, please drop it in the Q&A box rather than the chat if you can, just so that we have them all compiled in one place. We'll also have some time for Q&A at the end, so we'll be answering any questions there as well as questions that came through from the registration forms. Okay, so just a quick intro to NAVA for those of you who haven't heard of us before. NAVA stands for the National Association for the Visual Arts, and we are the national peak body for visual arts, craft, and design in Australia. Since 1983, we've been an influential advocate for the sector, and we continue to be. Next slide, please. So we are a membership organization aiming to bring together the many voices that make up our contemporary arts sector to improve the fundamental conditions of work and practice. Our membership base consists of artists, arts workers, and organizations right across the country. Next slide. So this Recognize Art as Work graphic pretty much sums up the heartbeat of what we do here at NAVA. It's a motto that is really affirmed across advocacy we do, our education resources, and also our code of practice, or the code for short. Before I go on too much further about the code, I do just want to hand it over to Jane to introduce herself and the amazing work that UTP do.
Thank you so much, Emma. Hello, everyone. I'm Jane. I'm a creative producer with UTP. We're a small to medium arts organisation based within Bankstown Arts Centre on Darug Country. In short, we're like a commissioning and producing organisation, and we have a really strong focus on Western Sydney, in particular development for Western Sydney artists and first presentation in Western Sydney for Western Sydney audiences as well in the community. A great way to kind of explain the work we do as well is that it's split into like three three streams where the first, and they all kind of feed into each other as well. So it starts with open access. So an example of that is UTP Rising, which I'll chat a bit more on soon. And programs we used to have, such as Diane Miller, which was like a free residency program. And then the second kind of stream is development stream. So that's when we work with artists to get their works from, something as simple as ideation to its final development, and then that kind of then feeds into presentation. An example of this would be we're currently working on the final development of Leanne Tobin's incredible play Bullangai. Um, and so then an example of presentation, right, would be earlier this year we supported the theatre production by Ahilin Ratnamahan called The Tamilization of Ahilin Ratnamahan as part of Sydney Festival. So that's kind of a good way to break down what UTP is and what we do. And also a way that we're led each year, we're led by a provocation. And so as you can see here, this beautiful design by Wasila Noor, our provocation this year is Who is Ready for Another World? And it really considers this moment of collective grief and models of collective liberation and resistance to settler colonialism. It comes from poet Rasha Abdul Hadi, a queer Palestinian Southerner, and posted on X. The full quote reads, "These are clarifying times if we are willing to pay attention. If our hearts break, let them break outwards into action. Let us practice being brave together today. We can notice, if we pay attention, who wants representation in empire and who is ready for another world." So yeah, that kind of led our thinking for this year and the range of projects that we're doing. And so just to pop on, I really quickly wanted to shout out two programs for this final session. I realize I probably should have shouted them out a bit sooner, but I've got good news for them now. So the first one, kind of in line with the pedagogical program that we're doing now, the first one is UTP Rising. So this program by UTP was really our answer to the lack of tertiary education in Western Sydney, which, we're preaching to the choir. We've spoken about it in earlier sessions of Area Coded. But this program is aimed at like that pre-emerging, emerging Western Sydney artists, kind of age 17 to 25. It's a 4-year program with like monthly workshops and activations. And we understand it's like a marathon, not a sprint. So we really recommend it's like a optional, not compulsory. Like attendance isn't this tracked thing within the program, and participants are paid for each workshop they attend. An idea of kind of how we're running it last year, we were more practice focused and artist led, whereas this year it's more about excursions and trying to get a lay of the land in Western Sydney. And yeah, a bit of a rationale behind the way we do the workshops is that I wanted students to leave with more questions than answers, just because, it's not like a regular uni course where it's so regular and you can really dive deeply into things. I really wanted it to be a program that just broadened people's horizons. And the good news I hinted at before is that we're going to have rolling expressions of interest open in June. So please watch this space, keep an eye out. You can do this by, signing up to the UTP newsletter is a really great way for that, as well as like all the other programs we do, and also following socials to stay updated. So yeah, really hope anyone who's interested, please apply. If you're like a emerging Western Sydney artist, I'd love to see you there. And then the second one I just wanted to quickly touch on in this session was the Darrow Collective, which is essentially like a mentoring and professional development and like administrative activism that UTP does for Darug artists and Darug land. It's for artists or collectives who can contact UTP for like grant support, project administration, and even the development for new ideas. Because UTP, we can assist with like auspicing and realizing self-determined projects by Darug artists. Quite a few of the artists that have been involved in Darug Collective have gone on to pursue major presentations of new work. So we've got like a Janawi Dance Clan with Garagarung Bardu, and also Leanne Tobin Bulungai is kind of through this stream. So yeah, if you're a Darug artist or group who would like to get in touch, please contact admin@utp.org.au. Just email us and mention Darug Collective, and yeah, we can help out however we can. So yeah, just wanted to shout those two out. Yeah, just in line with this sort of program.
Amazing. Thanks, Jane. So much amazing work happening at UTP. Love it. So before I hand it over to Jason, I do just want to briefly touch on NAVA's code of practice. So visual arts work is largely unregulated, leaving many artists and arts workers pretty susceptible to exploitative working conditions. And so to help remedy that, NAVA's code aims to help put in place good practice guidelines. It helps us to be able to work together more equitably, and importantly, to support artists whose art touches our lives every single day, and to support them to work under fair working conditions. So next slide. So what is the code of practice? It's an industry standard living document. And as an artist or arts worker, you can use the code to, one, understand what your rights and responsibilities are, two, to make equitable agreements when you're making art together with other people, and importantly, three, fees, to find out how much yourself or someone should be paid for making art, for allowing use of their art, or when you're working on certain projects. So the code also reflects current concerns in the art sector around things like social justice, access, equity, and inclusion, particularly for First Nations artists. If you flick through our code, you will see that there are considerations for First Nations artists and their communities throughout all aspects of working in the arts. So it's important that we're keeping them at the forefront. In the absence of legal oversight over many areas in our sector, the code really relies on our voluntary collective efforts to put into action the aspirational standards that are outlined. So for me, the code is really a call to action for our sector. Next slide. If you aren't aware of the code already, please do check it out. You can view it on your phones or on your on your desktop. It's a really critical tool to have on hand for wherever you are at with your journey in the arts. It's freely accessible online via this link you see on screen here, code.visualarts.net.au. That is it from me. I'm going to throw it over to Jason now to take it from here.
Thank you, Emma and Jane, and thanks to NAVA and Urban Theatre Projects for the invitation. I'm a big fan of both organisations. NAVA is critical to all artists in all levels of their career, and Urban Theatre Projects and the Bankstown Arts Centre is creating amazing work in Western Sydney, and it's my hope and aim that you know, the Bankstown wider community does get a purpose-built state-of-the-art building, and that can incorporate other organizations such as UTP, and you know, but I think in Bankstown we need a purpose-built art center. We've never had one before, and so you know, hoping that might come through today. So my name is Jason Wing. I'm an artist, a multidisciplinary artist with Aboriginal heritage. My ancestral links are Biripi man. However, I was sixth generation born and raised on Gadigal land. and currently living in between Gadigal land and Wiradjuri land. And yeah, also got Cantonese heritage from my father's side, from Guangdong province, mainland China. Also a Scottish colonial man. And for those who don't know, I was born in the dirty, dirty South. So shout out to the dirty, dirty South people. I was born in Bankstown, Yagoona, Chester Hill, all along the Georges River, near Lake Gillawana, the bird resting ground. And yeah, I'm a very proud Western Sydney artist. So just here to represent today and to give some pearls of wisdom and to just give some artists and arts workers some hints and tips, talk about some things that often aren't discussed. So if you have any questions, and send us some good questions, happy to answer those later down the track. And should I just go into like my relationship to Western Sydney, or should I just launch into it? Yeah, okay. Um, yeah, well, I guess yeah, like I said, I was born in Western Sydney, and so I started when I was in Blacktown. Um, I was strongly encouraged by John Cheeseman and Sophia Kuyemjan to develop my career, and so they strongly encouraged me to start entering local art prizes. And so I entered some local art prizes in Blacktown, and I I won my category a few years in a row. And so that actually gave me the confidence and let me know that I was on the right path. So highly recommend all artists to start, applying to their local art centers and regional galleries. Also, just introduce yourself, um, and build up your body of work for say roughly about 5 years is like a rough indicator. Emerging artist is a bit of a gray term. It's the average is 5 to 10 years, but it's conditional. It's a rough indication. Um, yeah, so yeah, I guess, in my career, I've exhibited in pretty much all the Western Sydney institutions, Kashila Powerhouse, Blacktown Art Centre, Bankstown, Parramatta Studios. Um, yeah, so you just got to get out there as much as you can. Yeah, I guess my personal journey. So I went to, well, I mean, I've always been an artist, but I did go to art school. And now, just to be clear, you don't have to go to art school to be a successful artist. Um, that's something that a lot of artists are told, but it's not true, especially um, especially if you have like if you're living your cultural life, so you don't have to go to university to talk about your lived cultural experiences. So I went to Sydney College of the Arts. It was you know it was okay, but it didn't make me the artist that I was, that I am today. So I just want to really make that clear to people, to get rid of that anxiety, um, of feeling like you have to go to art school. Anyway, I did, and then I did a graphic design degree because, like most artists, the parents say, don't become an artist, you're not going to make any money. So I did a graphic design degree because I thought, well, I could still be creative, but make some money and then fund my art career. So getting a relatable job, similar but different, is always good. And then after that, just worked in a lot of design houses. I hated it really. I did advertising design. I didn't like working with ignorant clients, and so eventually I just left, returned back to the arts. And I also worked with children and adults with disabilities. This funded my art career full time. And then basically every year I dropped a day off the week. And so over 5 years, I managed to transition from full-time work to part-time work to being a full-time artist in 5 years. And you have to prove yourself over that 5 years that it's sustainable. So I highly recommend having a part-time job to fund your art career because, as we all know, we cannot survive off arts funding alone, especially when the government is pinching and significantly reducing that number every year for arts funding, which, you know, is an exploitative way because it forces people and artists and arts workers to undercut others to secure that funding. So the model itself is exploitative, and reducing the pot every year is just well, it's sort of art sector suicide, really. So they're going to have to change that. What else about my journey? Yeah, attend as many art openings as possible, meet the curators. When you've got a body of work, say a good five to 7 to 10, show the curators, set up a proper meeting. It's people don't know that you can set up meetings with curators at institutions, but you can. It's actually their job. So set up a meeting, but back yourself first. You got to have a few runs on the board first. You can't just turn up cold and go, I'm awesome. You got to have a few runs on the board, like art prizes and a good body of work. But you've actually got to do that with all art centres and regional gallery people. And as soon as those people leave, you have to go and reintroduce yourself again to the next curator. So you've got to really maintain those relationships. Yeah, so back to my journey. Yeah, enter as many prizes as you can, as many shows. Don't say no to any exhibitions. Don't feel like any shows are beneath you. It's all experience, it's all development. You got to go hard, go with a, shotgun approach, and then later on down the track, you can be a bit more targeted. Go do a lot of artist run initiatives. They're awesome. They're great training grounds for people. Emerging institutions such as urban theatre projects and even Pact Theatre, who specialize in emerging and queer safe spaces. And any emerging space is critical because you do need to learn along the way, make your mistakes, be influenced, and just it's practical experience. And a lot of the artist run initiatives and spaces that I've done, and I still do it. I still show in places like Cementa and artists. I'm not beyond artist run initiatives. I have the most fun in those spaces. They're experimental spaces, and it's where you can really develop. But I just found out that Pact did not get their multi-year funding. So this is a big blow for the, if you don't nurture the next generation of the arts sector, and this is what the ministers and the government for some reason don't understand, but if you don't nurture the next generation, there is no sector. If they can't understand that, well, they shouldn't have their jobs, really. Business cards. Always have physical business cards. I know it sounds dated, but hand them out. People forget, in this digital world, no one remembers your name when they've had a few drinks, give them a card. It's old school, but it works. Web page, essential. What else we got? Do your own social media. As an artist, I describe us as like we're entrepreneurs times entrepreneurs squared. So artists are the ultimate hustlers, and you got to remember that the way that the dominant society views us, say government, is that we are luxury, unnecessary luxury items. And so we're at the bottom of the list of funding, yet I find this really bizarre because We're the ones designing the luxury cars for politicians and government. We design the apps, we design their boutique apartments, hotels. So, the other thing that the government doesn't understand is that the arts sector, the wider, broader arts sector, is larger than tourism, larger than mining, and gives more income than those industries. So, the fact that they're not supporting it financially is like it's crazy. Doesn't make sense. Need new people. Um, yeah. I guess maintaining networks. I think I've touched on that a little bit. Maintaining networks is a physical activity. It's like exercise. You must go to the galleries, go to the people, and it's non-stop. You have to do it. Get in people's faces, introduce yourself. Uh, create good work to start with. You got to make good work. You got to sell a good product. Once you've established yourself locally, then I would encourage, once you got a few runs on your board locally, like a couple of prizes and a couple of exhibitions, um, get a solo show under your belt. Doesn't matter where, just get it done. Again, emerging spaces are great for that, critical. And always keep a separate budget for photography. I made that mistake when I was a green artist. I didn't have money to document my works. And then when I put my first monograph together of my work in 2014, I didn't have good quality images of some of my best work. So learn from my mistake. And no matter how much the cost is, photograph your works high res from the very beginning. You never know. You might have a monograph and a 10, 20-year survey book later down the track. So find the money or befriend a photographer, do art swaps, do whatever. Just get the work photographed really well. And then, once you start locally and you've done that, then I would suggest start looking regionally. So look, you do the same, it's exactly the same formula. Go and meet the regional galleries, take your portfolio, you've got your web page, you do the same thing for each level, emerging, mid-career, established. It doesn't stop. You have to do it the whole way through. Same thing, set up meetings, introduce yourself. And then once you start showing regionally, try and do all the regional galleries. It has this sort of inertia. Go local, regional, and then state. So that's basically the progression. There are some exceptions to this process, and they're the art superstars some go from art school to famous. It does happen. And look, there's no rules, but there is something to be said for the journey. And there's something to be said for leveling up. You don't want to be you don't want to be somewhere when you're not ready for it. Um, but I guess, when you build up your career, it's, from emerging to mid-career to established, with, there's a very problematic thing at the moment where if you reach, the top of your game, which effectively is the Venice Biennale, the current art scene at the moment is that, well, uneducated, unqualified arts ministers and government people and powerful people behind the scenes can censor artworks and opportunities. So it doesn't matter what level in your career you're at. We've seen in recent times that, yeah, the government censors art and is not really funding it properly. So we are in a very scary position. It's something that Aboriginal artists have always known, and people of culturally diverse backgrounds have always known, but I think it's in the national spotlight now, which, I'd like to address a bit more before we finish up today. What else we got? Yeah, I might just move on to a bit of mentoring. So I was lucky enough to be mentored, like say culturally for Aboriginal people, but also for other ethnic, um, diverse ethnic groups as well. We already have this understanding of sharing, like, so we just share in our cultures normally. And so when it comes to artworks, assets, contacts, opportunities, we share that anyway. Um, and that's just something that we've always done. And so I've been lucky enough to be mentored by amazing artists such as Vernon Arkey, Tony Albert, Black Douglas, John Mundine, um, many, many, many more. And that helped me so much as an artist, knowing I've got some people in my corner. And when you're very green, you don't know, like you actually do really need some guidance. The Aboriginal art world is a very culturally unsafe space uh, from non-Aboriginal people, but specifically and more so much from Aboriginal people, like Aboriginal gatekeepers, um, which is another thing, not just Aboriginal gatekeepers, but art gatekeepers in general. Um, that's something that you have to understand is real and exists. Like, I know for myself, if there are certain Aboriginal curators that are judges on prizes and public art, um, and there's a conflict of interest for personal dislike, not professional reasons, um, I know that I won't apply for certain prizes and opportunities because of unprofessional gatekeeping, unjustified, unvalid, and should be illegal, really. Um, it's just really, yeah, it's hard to prove, but it's definitely there. So, you know, just know that that exists. If you're not in the curator's little, or if you're not in the curator's like favorites, their friends in their phone, chances are you're not going to get in. Not all curators, they're the bad ones, but the good curators actually curate the best work for the best outcome. And they put personal dislikes aside. Um, yeah, so because I've been mentored, it's really important that I pay that forward. And I've mentored plenty of artists casually throughout the years, all at their own personal cost and time. I've mentored mural artists, Aboriginal mural artists, and now they have their own successful mural business, and I can't even get them to work for me. So that's such a yes, that just makes me super proud. And now the Aboriginal mural artist that we mentored, she's mentoring people. So this is how the art world works. And then, you got divisive bureaucrats, which systematically destroys all this good sharing and networking that's done. Um, I think mentoring in terms of public art, again, it's all at personal cost. I think mentoring should be funded like embedded systemically and funded in all levels of the arts sector and all levels of industry. If it was good enough for the old masters and mob, it's good enough for us. But I must stress in terms of public art and that, like, it should be paid. It should be paid by the government. We're all experts. Our time's valuable. Um, and it shouldn't be at a personal cost, even though as artists, we're happy to absorb that for the greater good. But it really should be paid. Like any other expert in any other industry, well, they get expert fees. Um, so I don't see why it's any different for us. Yeah, mentoring. Yeah, I think how to continue evolving as an artist and not staying stagnant is yeah, it's a good one. So for me personally, I mean, I'm a risk taker just generally, and it's just important to take risks. It's as an artist, it's good to have your stable, recognizable, branded, um, sort of art making. But I would also recommend that running parallel to that, go experimental, experiment as much as you can, do as many mediums as you can, still have your bread and butter one that brings in the funds, but on the side, concurrently, you must experiment and you must take risks. You must well, I don't use the word fail. It's process, it's development. But don't be scared to take a risk. It doesn't always land, but that's okay. Respect yourself because you took that risk. I used to teach at Eora TAFE. I was the head cultural arts teacher at Eora TAFE for over 5 years. And my favorite saying to my students was push it. So they'd come up, they'd give me the work, they go, what do you think? I'm like, push it. It's an hour later, what do you think? Yeah, it could be pushed a little bit more. And it was just a bit of a joke. And even though I would get works that were highly resolved and being pushed to the maximum, I'd still go, yeah, I think you could push it a little bit more. So I think, there's something in that. And yeah, I mean, uh, uh, my work has conceptual threads, but it's not a recognizable brand. And I know that branding is a real dirty word in terms of artists, but galleries love artists that are branded because they want people to look at the work and go, oh, yeah, that's a such and such. I want to own a such and such, so they could recognize. But with me and my career, it's been really different. My conceptual threads are the same, but everything else is different. So I'm like a gallery's worst nightmare, really. And that's why I've largely self-funded my art career. And which is also important because if it's self-funded, I can't have anyone. Well, actually, even though it is self-funded, the government can still decide, and the arts minister can still decide if it's seen or not. But because it is self-funded, my works are highly critical against the Australian government. So the chances of me getting government funding are slim to none. And so that's why I have to rely on part-time work, jobs, whatever you got to do to survive, whatever. You just got to do it. Um, yeah, so how else do you stay relevant? Don't follow trends. You'll never stay relevant following trends. You just speak from the heart. Talk about if you have a cultural background, talk about your culture, talk about the way you see the world, how the world sees you. Uh, and if you don't have any culture, then that's okay. You can, I don't know, talk about whatever you want to do. So I'll collaborate with other artists if you want to stay relevant too. Collaborate with like an artist you admire. Now, collaboration's an interesting word. There's a tokenistic collaboration where it's more like I call it co-design. And that's a bit sort of pernicious, but then there's another side where it's a proper collaboration, like relinquishing ego, relinquishing power, just being fluid. And that takes a special kind of artist to work with another special kind of artist. And again, doesn't always land, but you'll be better for the experience. Make work that, I mean, a lot of my work is like really traumatic. And so it's important to make um, beautiful work for yourself with no purpose, like we call art for art's sake. So I have my own series going. It's a joyful series. No one's ever seen it, but when I'm traumatized and crying and hating the colony and the government, and just when we go deep into our trauma for our work, I actually hate making work. It's actually a really horrible experience because it's talking about the effects of colonization. That's a really traumatic thing. And so I have this other series which is just joyful and happy, and which is what we are in our backyards. And so have different series going on at once, have different works on the go, just be as diverse as possible, and you'll stay relevant. Yeah, talk about, if you got culture, focus on that. Focus on what it's like to be, uh, a person with diverse backgrounds in Australia or in the world. Uh, and it's also important to try and stay grounded. And for me, it's just being really grateful. It's a really simple thing, but a really powerful thing. The people that practice gratefulness will understand the values of it. And, you know, every time I sell a work is a blessing. I'm so grateful. I can't actually believe that someone is parting with anywhere between one to tens of thousands of dollars to buy my thoughts or a piece of my soul or a piece of my thoughts and perspective. Like it blows my mind still every time. I'm like, wow, wow. And not only that, but when you sell a work, what the bureaucrats don't understand is that it pays our rent. It puts food on our table. It gives us money to make the next artwork. Now, when we get jobs taken away or funding cut, or it basically means that critical, essential art services and artists shut their doors and cease to exist. And this is like devastating for the arts sector, especially on entry level galleries, which are already in a vast minority. Like if you're mid-career and established, you're fine. But what about the hardest bit is the emerging. The hardest bit's getting to the mid-career and establish. And then once you're there, you got to maintain it. That's even harder. But you know, you just do what you can. Other artists ground me. My wife, Madison Gibbswing, she grounds me. My ancestors ground me, spirits. I love teaching. I love sharing to the next generation, little kids. I've lost a lot of faith in these old bureaucrats, so I focus on the little kids, do heaps of workshops with kids. That keeps my soul and income flowing. And little kids need, art therapies just should be embedded in all industries as well. Um, yeah, just being grateful that as an Aboriginal man that I can actually make art without being shot or incarcerated or enslaved or fear of social beatings, or whereas my Aboriginal grandfather did not have that social opportunity. And so I feel great that I can make these works critical of this current uh, government and current country without persecution in any way. Maybe a few death threats and a bit of trolling, but nothing, not in the way that my grandfather experienced. So anyway, that was a lot. How we sort of tracking with time wise.
You're pretty good for time still. It's only 1:46, so we've still got could do 15 more minutes of having a yarn and then on to 30 minutes of questions, or could do even 30 minutes more of having a yarn and then have 15 minutes
Sure.
of questions. Up to you.
Yeah, look, I'm really happy. I just went on a big ramble there, but is there anything you guys want to bring up just quickly, or otherwise I'll just keep going?
Oh, great point. Nothing from me. I think Emma will have a question maybe during question time. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, please feel welcome, Jay. I'm one of the students right now. I'm just like listening and taking it all in. So yeah, please feel welcome to
Yeah, cool. That's all right. Look, we're all students of life, really. But I guess what, just while I've got a little bit of just while I've got a little bit of extra time, I guess there's a real fear amongst the art community at the moment. This fear that we can't even do our job. Much like a lot of comedians, such as Dave Chappelle and others, and journalists even, like proper journalists, not clickbait, like journalists that do the real traditional job. And there's this fear that, take Khaled, for instance. He's gone community, emerging, mid-career, established. He's been in biennales around the world. He's Western Sydney born and bred. He was what they used to call the community development officer at Casula Powerhouse for God no 20 plus years. And this is a guy who has done the hard yards with a family, making works at 4 a.m. It's the only time he's got, and yet you can strive your entire career to get to the pinnacle, which is the Venice Biennale. And then we have basically a borderline potential racist arts minister and friends. And the art minister, unless his CV rivals Khaled and the selection panel's CV combined, then the art minister is actually unqualified to make that decision. And also the fact that Khaled was approved for the opportunity, and then that was just taken away for no good reason. Now, this is a mockery well, it's actually insulting. I've been an assessor and peer reviewer for Create and OzCo. As an expert I'm an expert in over 5 sectors. And I know that the other people on that panel, far more qualified than I and others. And it's a mockery of their expertise, because they're experts saying, we as 3+, 4+ experts say that Khaled is the one. He is the one. So the fact that they're instantly dismissed, it's a tokenist. Being a panelist is now become a tokenistic position, despite their expert knowledge. We've seen it's tokenistic because that was just thwarted. It's just for the government, it's just something that can just be overruled with no genuine explanation. The arts minister gave us this PC nonsensical explanation that only really pointed at racism, if you read between the lines. And the fact that this can be done to any artist is really scary. Now, Khaled's worked his whole life to get there. He's missed that opportunity was stolen from him. It's a mockery of the legal system. So for those who don't know, there's contract signed. So Khaled got the opportunity, contract signed, all approved, and then all of a sudden that's overturned. And so you can't even trust contracts. Now, as an artist, if you can't trust contracts, good Lord, we're in trouble. You can't trust that selection panels will have the final say. And you can't trust that racism won't just creep in and, take opportunities. Like there's no financial penalties. Like if you breach you just yeah. Any other contract, there's financial penalties. Now, Khaled has lost an international platform. Now, that translates into loss of income due to opportunity and potential sales and future sales, and turning into an international star. And so him and his family and the Australian arts sector all suffers. And, the art scene here is an absolute train wreck due to the government bureaucracy, and they're just running it like the wild, wild west. There's little to no accountability, and I think all artists and the arts sector, like we're really calling for his resignation. Like he can't perform the basics of his job. He's unqualified and borderline racist. And I know it's not just his decision, but the other people involved. Now, I know that there's other private people involved that they fund, they're major donors for Biennales and other major institutions. Now, these people also had problems with Khaled, and they threatened to withdraw significant funding, which would see events such as the Biennale just collapse. And so we're really looking at this abuse of power for personal dislike and cultural dislike. And it's really scary. And it's actually embarrassing the fact that the Australian Pavilion is going to have nothing. Um, I mean, it's a disaster. I mean, if anything, I know that Richard Bell wanted to propose, I think a year or a couple of years before, he just wanted to put a chain and lock around the Australian Pavilion. And that was kind of symbolic of how Aboriginal people are treated. Now, if they weren't going to fill the Australian Pavilion, there's other options such as Richards that they could have slotted straight in. But again, it's a race thing. um, the government are like, oh, what message are we sending to the rest of the world? Well, you know what message you're sending to the rest of the world? You're racist autocrats. And that's what message you're sending, and it's being received loud and clear. So the fact that there's been no response since that generic PC uninformative, like as artists and the arts community, we deserve detailed feedback on this decision, not generic PC, blah blah, borderline racist, whatever. It's like we're experts. We want detailed reports on why. We don't want an inquiry. We already know what happened. An inquiry is a waste of time. We want action. We want action. We want the minister gone just to start with, and then we still need further action. And that's what the art community demands. So, you know, anyway, I could go on. I'll probably just stop there.
No, that's like excellently said, Jason. I'm so glad you went into it because it's a major part. Yeah, the fact that Khaled, who is so established and so renowned and so validated throughout the industry and academic circles and his peers, and was chosen by these incredible assessors, and to have it overturned so quickly, it was within hours. Like, yeah, it is such a major issue in the arts industry currently. This huge censorship. It's linked to pro-Palestinian pushback.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's something that is major in the art world, and yeah, really good to speak about, especially you're right with the way funding bodies will corner you in these sorts of ways and censor even indirectly, because it sent a really loud message to the rest of the community that we heard loud and clear from them, was that we are not scared to censor you and blacklist you and rescind funding no matter what. Like, even if you've been announced properly, even if contracts are signed, yeah, and it has totally broken trust with the government and funding bodies throughout artists, organizations. It makes it incredibly difficult, especially in Western Sydney, with so many organizations who rely on government funding to have that trust broken. Yeah, and you're right, we need a better response than this yeah like passive written letter. You need a direct apology, you need resignation of the board. Yeah, what were the demands? It was apology to Khaled and Michael and the sector, resignation of the board, an investigation into how this happened and ensuring it never happens again.
Mm.
and reinstatement of Khalid and Michael, which, I
Yeah.
still wish they would. But I know I feel from what I remember, I think Khalid and Michael will be pursuing other forms of presenting it in a way that will not be censored. Which I really wish all the best to them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the grounds that it was censored on was completely subjective. I mean, we have a saying in mob that you know, basically some people say that, oh, our colonial forefathers are our heroes, and we say, well, no, actually, they're the architects of murder for our people.
Mm,
And it's this kind of subjective opinion. It's just the art minister's opinion, which nobody agrees with apart from other racists. But
mm,
um, his opinion is that there was an image of a problematic character. Now, in Khaled's work, he and in this work that they specifically reference, which was taken completely out of context, by the way, and nothing to do with his proposal for the Biennale. They were just digging up dirt, basically, a smear campaign. And so they say that this cultural figure that he portrayed is problematic, and so we're shutting it down. And it's like, well, you know, there are many world leaders at the moment who are problematic. And there are many leaders in Australia who are far more problematic from what we've just seen. And so I think what the art minister has done is far more problematic than what was done in Khaled's separate work of 10 years ago. But the thing that the minister missed, because he's not educated, he's unqualified, the thing that he doesn't seem to get is that Khaled was actually he was interrogating how the media portrays such people. And because the minister's uneducated, he doesn't even get the basics of he's probably never even seen it. you know, I mean, I know other artists that have made work about Trump, and now they're terrified that they're not going to be allowed in America, like that they'll be turned around at the airport. They're trying to delete posts where they liked funny tweets about Trump because they want to go to America. Now, I mean, this is just crazy, crazy censorship. I mean, as mob, censorship's always existed. It's just, now it's just like others are starting to see. And, I think, the Black Lives Movement and all that, it's all, and then, look, the whole world is starting to experience what all early Indigenous cultures have always experienced. And so now we have a collective community of solidarity for exploitation and systemic racism. Um, and it's largely why I've self-funded my work, because I don't want anyone saying, you can't do that. But it has consequences. If I fund my own work, it takes me 10 times longer, you know, to make it. But it's worth it because I am completely uncensored, and the institutions, they validate me by buying my works. I got works in the Art Gallery New South Wales, National Gallery, and they validate my work, which would be considered problematic by the arts minister, far more than Khaled's. So anyway,
yeah. No, it's a
yeah.
fantastic point. And I was just going to note that if anyone, Khalid has incredible essays on his work that have been
Mm,
released as well, like really methodically going through and dispelling so many of the just racist smears that were made about him in these like right-wing media
mm.
newspapers. They're really incredible reads. I am so sorry off the top of my head. I cannot remember who published them, but you can find them through Khalid Sabsabi's Instagram.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know if you know who wrote them.
I think it was
Yeah, I think
remember.
It was,
yeah,
although
Alex
they have been very
Visser
supportive.
one. Yeah, I think Nava's done one, Alex Visser.
Yeah,
There's
we
been
put a
It's been
statement.
incredible.
a whole
Might have
bunch.
been ArtsLink maybe had published a piece
Yes.
collating all the curators' statements around Khalid's work, I
Yep.
think.
Yeah, and from the minister and the government, since that generic nonsensical response, there's been nothing. There's been no action. They're just hoping it's going to go away. And so I'm really inspiring people to still make some noise about this because they just want it to fall over.
Mm,
They know that they're just going to give scraps, and people like, oh, we're still going to beg for scraps. Don't upset them or they'll cut us. And so it's very problematic. There's got to be a better model than we think of it like the government's still the mission master and they're still giving flour, sugar, tea rations. It's just rations to artists, and if you don't play ball, you don't get your tea bags.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Mm,
that's not
yeah,
art.
I
That's a
think
totalitarian autocratic state.
yeah, absolutely. A way I kind of describe it is I think in Western Sydney there's a lot of things that are common knowledge to us, like exactly what you say about how these are things that BIPOC artists have known their whole lives, but is just becoming more mainstream now. I think particularly in Western Sydney because it is such a diverse area, there are so many things that are common knowledges to us, but when you explain to them to the government because they are like the mission masters, it's like radical to them. It's like, oh my gosh, like just these absolutely crazy radical ideas coming out of here. And it's that really interesting idea of what is radical and who is it radical to, because it changes whoever you're talking to. What's radical to one is just like common sense to another. Yeah, so that is also something that impacts Western Sydney art scene as well,
mm,
particularly having to communicate and like translate ideas to people. And
Mm,
also just to note, it was Artist Profile magazine who is publishing 10 pieces of text from international and local curators
mm,
on Khaled Subsabi's work. So yeah, just really incredible, methodically breaks down and is what, should have been researched by the board before they made such a snap decision to drop him.
just
Um,
yeah, just on that as well. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Jason, for like addressing the elephant in the room. I know like everyone's feeling the effects of that decision to drop Khaled. I know the Nava team has as well.
mm,
Um, and I wondered if you had any thoughts because I know it is a larger systemic issue, but if you had any thoughts around how organizations or arts boards can, I guess, be better trained to support the artists when they or their works are under unwarranted attacks from media and politics, how do they not be so risk averse and to back the artists because yeah, at the end of the day, like it comes back to how do you advocate for the artists, which as an arts organization or funding body, that's your sole
mm.
mission. Yeah, did you have any thoughts about
Um, Look, I mean, from my experience, I found that
mm,
there's nothing wrong with the arts organizations,
mm,
apart from um, the state funded organizations. They have a much heavier screening policy. Basically, it can't be too political, whatever that, which is a subjective criterion itself. But generally speaking, I find the institutions are incredible for supporting artists, but they're limited because if we're still reliant on extending our hand, please, sir, can we have some more money? Um, I think that's the problem. The problem is that the arts organizations are forced to 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 beg for money, really. And so it's never given freely as a gift. It's always conditional. It's always conditional to the person up top, aka arts minister and people above that. So nobody's safe. And so you're right, the trust is lost. And I guess the question is from Create and the minister and other parties, how are you going to build our trust? And we don't want words. We don't want your PC rhetoric. We want action and we want to see it. We don't want to hear it, but how are you going to rebuild our trust? When are you going to reinstate Khaled and Michael's opportunity? When is the minister going to be forced to step down? These are the actions that we start with. But I also think that, Australia has well, I think Australia, I mean, I'll talk about Sydney because I'm from Sydney, but Sydney is very Sydney centric. Like, I think that the fact that Khaled was a Western Sydney artist, the government considered censoring. But if it was an inner city, you know, like there are other artists, other white artists that I know, that the government would never consider to do that to, you know. So we can't rule out that this is a also racist to Western Sydney. We can't rule that out, which is also problematic. I mean, for myself, despite my own bias, I find that the most interesting work is coming out of Western Sydney and always has because it's people of culture actually saying something important. They're not sheltered workshops for rich white people that funded by daddies and mummies. And, it's like, and all those sort of sheltered workshops for rich white artists, like they don't say anything. Their work actually, it doesn't really say much. And so I've always gravitated towards Western Sydney art because they're saying something. They're saying, this is my stance, my position, my perspective. This is what I'm passionate. Yeah, it's anyway, that's my own bias and prejudice, but it's still true. And the fact that like Western Sydney TAFEs and universities and they're all shut down, it's everything's funneled into university and shutting down all the Western Sydney TAFEs and pay to play. And it's, from the Western Sydney Uni, you've got artists like Julie Rapp, Guan Wei, like, whew, and that was just shut down like that. So we need to invest in infrastructure. Like, I'm going to bring it up again. Like, Bankstown needs a dedicated art center. Sorry, a dedicated purpose-built art gallery because, Casula's got one, much smaller. Blacktown's got one, much smaller population. Penrith Regional, very like, you know, Bankstown is the largest uh, demographics and multi-conglomerate councils. I think it's like 6 or 8 councils merged together. Like it is massive, the Canterbury Bankstown area. And not only do we need one central purpose-built art gallery, we need multiple. We actually need one in every suburb. And then we have satellite galleries like Campbelltown but we need all local art galleries in every suburb and we need artist studios. Without artist studios, there will be no next generation of artists. Yes, we can work on the kitchen table and on the floor, but it's got limits. Parramatta Artist Studios are a massive, massive success, and their success can be charted and measured, and that's a model that every council should adapt. But getting back to, I think Australia has a really bad attitude about art. Overseas in progressive countries, we have like places like Holland and Scandinavia, and I mean they've got like sort of like the doll, and then they've got an art doll on top of that. So artists get specific dedicated money to make art and get rent reductions. And the philanthropy overseas for art is out of control. Australia is just so far behind. Like Australian art scene is a joke overseas. When I go overseas, they say, "Oh, you're an Australian artist. You guys make work about landscape and identity." And I'm laughing. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's funny, because that's true." And and then they're like, "Yeah, that's all you guys do. Like that's why you're not, that's why you're not worldwide. But someone like Khaled is worldwide, and his work does go beyond, um, that sort of stereotype and joke of Australian art. And he is revered more overseas than in his own country, which is says a lot. So I think that sort of begging mission mentality to get arts funding from the government, I think that is the beginning, and I think that is the end of the problem. If there was more philanthropy, if there was um, um, like more regulation, like, you know, the art world is the most unregulated industry in the world. And we've just seen that the art minister is really keeping that alive, because he actually breached all the Create New South Wales cultural protocols, which nobody is bringing up. He's in complete breach of that. And Create is also in breach of their own protocols that the government funded to write with no consequence. So Create's lost our trust as well, and they need to do some hard work too. Giving out money is not a solution. Giving out scraps is not the solution. Um, so I think more private philanthropy, but you know, our population just is not can't sustain that. We don't have enough uh, rich people per capita, I think. Um, yeah, I don't know. Questions, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I might move us on to questions then. I'm going to quickly stop sharing screen and pull up. I'm so sorry, I haven't been able to fully see the chat. I don't think we have any questions in the Q&A box, but guys, please feel welcome to pop them in there. Any that you have, but we do have that really cracker list of pre-submitted questions that were just wonderful. So I'm just going to quickly pull them up. I wonder, just thinking about what maybe we haven't
Mm.
spoken about, because you did cover quite a few of these, even as you were kind of speaking through it. So I wonder.
Yeah, sorry, that was my tangential brain. I had it all
Yeah, that
set.
was great. That was,
Silly.
yeah. No, it was fantastic. It was really good because you did kind of touch on the bread and butter job and like bringing your days down. Oh, this might be a good one about what sustained you through mid-career and how do you sustain your practice without relying on grants. But mainly, I guess, what sustained you through mid-career, because I think we chatted about this, hey, like that idea of the mid-career graveyard and like what that is. Do you want to explain maybe what that is and how you how you escaped the mid-career graveyard?
Yeah, sure, sure. I don't know if I've escaped it. I still could be in it. I'm not sure. But yeah. So what you know, what I call the mid-career graveyard is that, you know, it's it's easier as an emerging artist to gain notoriety because you're young, you're fresh, you're vibrant, you know, like you're making work that people haven't seen before. And so that's an easier rise. You know, if you just basically do what I told you to do step by step, go to the, you know, do that and you'll get there.
Mm.
And yeah, it's sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
No, you're good. Oh, goodness me. I lost it
Yeah,
with
sorry, mid-career
apologize.
graveyard. Yeah,
Go on.
yeah. So you know, the emerging ride is great. Say 5 to 7, maybe even 10 years. It's
Mm.
so after that 10 years, I would assume that you know, you've won prizes, you've shown in local galleries, you've shown in maybe a couple of regional galleries, and you know, you've had a few solos,
Mm.
and and curators are calling you up to be in shows. You know, I would sort of consider that mid-career where um, I was lucky enough to be able to make art full time as a mid-career artist, which is another milestone. Um, And maintaining that is hard because, as the rappers say, it's easy to get to the top, but the hardest part is staying there. And that's true for musicians, drug dealers, artists, any sort of entrepreneur. And it's yeah, how do you stay there? How do you maintain? Because you can't just flog the dead horse. It does the art world won't take it. They won't have it. For some people they do, but it's, not that interesting. But how do you maintain it? I guess being true to yourself, like, because then you can't fail. So if you're making work that you're proud of and would hang on your own wall, which is how I judge my work, I would buy my works, and that's my yardstick. Yeah, if I'm not like, hell yeah, I love that work, it's not leaving the studio. So maintaining is hard. You have to work harder. I mean, I've been in really famous Aboriginal artist studios. I've been lucky enough to share studios with some of the top artists in Australia. And what I saw from an emerging artist, which was basically kind of solo, getting into the mid-career to establish was very different. I saw that in order to survive in the mid-career graveyard, you actually need a team of people behind you. Now, this is something that not a lot of people say. But the reason why people survive the mid-career graveyard is because they have a team of people working behind them in their studio assistants. They have the funds, they have marketing people, they have influential curators in their pockets. They have writers on retainer, they have photographers, and so this is the hidden stuff in the studio that not a lot of people get access to. And for some reason, they don't really tell people that you need a team to get to an established artist. And then once you're established, it takes its own momentum, but then you actually have to do the same again with the team, but you have to elevate it. You need more because the other artists you're competing with in the emerging and established, they're all doing the same thing. They've got a team of people behind them. So it's a bit of a case of, you know, can't beat them, join them kind of thing. Me, myself, I couldn't really afford a team of people. So I did a lot of it largely myself, but my gallery acted like a team of people. And that was a good gallery. A lot of galleries just take the 50%, don't work on developing your career at all. You get a show once every 2 years in a gallery of 40 artists. And if you're not their cash cow, the top 5 selling artists in their gallery, well, you don't get attention, generally speaking. And so I guess people do elevate with galleries. So you might have a gallery in your emerging phase. You might elevate to another gallery in your mid-career, and then you might elevate to another gallery. And now it's not good to gallery hop too much because galleries are like you're married to them. It's a proper relationship. So breakups are real, they're traumatic, they're messy. And so you don't want to change galleries too often. So I'd say as an artist, be really really with military precision, research the galleries, make sure that the artists that they exhibit, make sure that there's some connection to your work in some way, and then you target. Generally speaking, the gallerists will contact you once you've got lots of runs on the board. It's not always the case. I personally would go and introduce myself, say I'm available, even though that's not the way it's done. But I did it anyway, because if you don't ask, you don't know, and the worst they can say is no. So I'd recommend don't. I mean, galleries would hate me saying this, but don't wait for them to call you. Just go and introduce yourself. They probably wouldn't like me saying that, but just do it anyway. They might say yes. They might go, "Oh, thank God you're here. I've been watching you for 5 years." So Yeah, it's pretty extreme, the mid-career graveyard, because you're not fresh anymore. You're not young and fresh and emerging, and you're making work, and it has to be kind of similar so that you can build your brand and stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting journey, and it's different for everybody as well. I mean, it's just largely my experience.
Mm. Such an important point, like still having to put yourself out there at every stage of your career.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
Um, mm,
artists are pretty shy as well. Like, I mean,
yeah.
you wouldn't know from talking to me today, but I was painfully shy. And that shyness and humbleness when I was um, like coming up through the ranks, like with things like public speaking, talking, introducing yourself and what you do. Like, I know so many amazing artists that are so kind of socially awkward, or they feel like they're assholes, arrogant assholes for talking about themselves in their work. And I'm like, no, 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 you got to shift your attitude. I'm like, people don't know unless you tell them, and how are they going to know? And people want
Yeah.
to know. So it's actually a bit of an attitude shift. People go, oh, I make art, but I don't really promote it. And I just go, well, no one's going to know then. And it's like, we as artists, we're really sensitive, delicate little flowers, but we actually have to uh when we go to work, we actually have to flick a switch and put on our armor and our battle cloak and our mask, and we've got to, while we're the artists, we switch into art mode, and perform that role, I guess. And that means, like, today, I tell you guys, well, I'm going to present really confidently and really, like, when really I'm like dying inside and want to vomit, and you know, public speaking's really awkward, and all of that stuff.
That
Uh,
is so
you gotta-
relatable, Jason. So relatable. I think just to link it back to Lover's Code as well, I think a lot of artists can struggle to advocate for their work when it comes to asking for payment. And
Mm,
that's why I want to stress to everyone that Nava's Code is there to help you provide language for you to be able to, negotiate fees and wages, to be able to support yourself and the work that you're making. Yeah, I just wanted
yeah.
to stress that. And there's also a comment in the chat from Caroline. And Caroline's interested to hear your thoughts about this, Jason. Um, they say also that you are very inspiring, and they are also Virpai, born and bred in Revesby. So they've suggested to Bankstown Council Deepwater Motorboat Club should be an Aboriginal cultural and arts centre, as our river has so much history.
Mm.
Um, yeah, do you have any thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, look, definitely couldn't agree more. The council has so many abandoned buildings and so many peppercorn rent buildings and so many buildings that are unactivated. They just need someone with vision to go to them and say, I want you to show me all of your unused and peppercorn rent places, and then start the conversation. And then I would suggest go to the media straight away. Just go to the Bankstown local paper or whatever, and just put an article in there and say, where's the keeping place? Where, Salt Pan Creek, um, which is around that area, Joe Anderson, King Barraga in, uh, so I'd say like early 1900s, gave one of the most significant protests on the Salt Pan Creek massacre site. And it was the first recorded videoed protest. It was the first social media um, protest, and that was just around the corner. And that's one of the most significant protests in Australia, the most articulate. And yeah, anyway, it's incredible. So yeah, we need keeping places, we need cultural centres. There's no keeping place in New South Wales, which is ridiculous. Like, there's supposed to be one at Barangaroo, which the developers said, yeah, we'll give you a cultural keeping place for all the artifacts we dug up. And again, we get an illegal casino and a broken commitment of a cultural keeping place. And, the fact that there's not one in New South Wales really speaks volumes. But just to get back to the NAVA payment code, now, without NAVA's recommended fees, I personally would have been exploited tens of thousands of dollars. If I and basically I would say I'd say 90% of the people were basically trying to exploit me until I quoted the recommended NAVA rates, and they went, oh, yes, of course, yeah, of course, yeah, right, yeah, no, we're always going to pay that, yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. Of course. And I'm like, well, you didn't. You're just trying to get away with it. But then the other 10%, they generally don't know. And so it's also important to let them know and say, look, I don't know if you know this, but this is far below standard rate. And they go, oh shit, didn't know. I'll check out the NAVA website. And yeah, good, go do that. But the other ones know, and they're pure exploitation, which is why it's even more important that we have these services to basically keep the bastards honest and hold them accountable. Now, NAVA's fees are recommendations, and the NAVA fees, they've tried to go for more, but they have to kind of like agree and settle on a certain price. But as far as I'm concerned, it's still a baseline price. It goes up from there. just because
100%.
just because NAVA gives a baseline price, that's not the price. It is a starting recommendation. Now, without NAVA and the code of like we would be absolutely screwed. Um, but we also have seen with Create, they have their code of conduct and their practice, and they breach their own codes. So, and the reason why corporations and companies can breach their own codes is because there's no financial penalty. So, I've been doing I do work for public art as well, and I say, look, the standard fees are blah 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 as per NAVA, and I've had clients say to me, oh well, yeah, well if that's NAVA's recommendation, that's great, but we're not paying you that. You can take it or leave it, and I'm like, yeah, but it's far below the recommended thing, and they're just like, well, take it or leave it. There's no financial penalty for us. There's no incentive. And we can exploit you. You either take the job or you don't. So it's important we have these recommendations to prevent further exploitation, but the fact that they're not financially mandated or policy with financial penalties, which would strongly encourage people to do it the right way. Because what business and government and corporates understand, they understand financial penalties. Every other industry does it. Why not artists?
Yeah, that is the next stage, I think, for NAVA to get these fees in an award. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's been a long process of trying to do that, but I think yeah, that would be the only way to get, a lot of organizations who don't necessarily understand how the art sector works or um don't really take these fees seriously. Like this is the only way for them to take it
Mm.
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am just conscious that it is 2:30. This was an amazing session. Yeah, I want to just thank Jason again for just being so authentic, and speaking your truth as well. It's just a great, like you've been a great artist to end on, and there's been lots of people in the chat who have thanked you for sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, no problem.
Um,
Pleasure.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll just wrap up here. This was the end of Area Coded. There's some info on this slide on how you can contact NAVA if you want to become a member, we have different tiers. We also offer a discounted insurance package that is specifically tailored to artists and the work that artists do. So please do check it out if you are needing insurance for your project. Jane, do you want to plug any UTP contact details?
Yes. Oh, quickly, this is the incredible Nava contact details. Please don't be a stranger. Nava are superheroes. They are lifesavers in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, call them for anything. Call them to say hey.
Doing our best, guys.
Yeah, and I think I also just want to quickly throw in, sorry, Jane, that
No,
every artist must have Nava insurance,
yeah.
and I cannot stress that enough. Installing your works in galleries, up ladders, workshops. I do a lot of mural painting, and so ladders. But even if you don't do murals, just installing your work or public liability for workshops, like it is absolutely essential. And I know it's a cost, but it's actually just cost of business. And you're actually supporting Nava to basically advocate for you. So, I feel like it's a fair exchange. We get the insurance, we're covered, and Nava gets to do really amazing advocation for us.
Beautiful. It's such a fantastic point. I was told that in uni as well, but I didn't know what insurance was, so it didn't fully sink in until I started getting older. But yeah, fantastic point, Jason. And UTP, this is our Instagram. It's UTP with like, I think it's 3 underscores. I'm really bad at counting. And then that's just our website. You can sign up for the newsletter through there. The newsletter is probably the best. It'll tell you like all the programs happening, and everything like that. But we also release them on our Instagram too. So yeah, keep an ear out, especially for the UTP Rising EOIs. Please feel welcome to sign up for that. Super easy process. I'm running the program. I promise I don't bite. So yeah, super keen to see you guys there. And any Darug Mob in the call with us at the moment. If you need any support with yeah, your projects, please feel welcome to reach out. Yeah. Right back to you.
Awesome. Jason, did you have your contact details as well? We've got Caroline in the chat who would be interested in contacting you after this session.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to give my contact details just to like anyone on anyone really. But I mean, people contact me all the time, so it can go up publicly or privately. No, no worries there.
No, beautiful. We
No
should have your
worries.
details, hey, Caroline, because of the registration.
Yeah, I'll send you an email, Caroline, and anyone else who wants yeah, to get in contact with Jason, just let us know.
Yeah, love to connect with people, especially about really specific things. I'm always up for like a really quick yarn, just gives a bit of a quick intro, and then we can go from there.
Amazing. So
Also,
anyone
if
left
there's
in?
if there's
No,
any
no, go.
spoken word poets out there, hit up Urban Theatre Projects and,
Oh yeah.
and Pact Theatre.
We'll do. Yeah, we've totally it's crazy, Jason. We're like across everything now. We're like everything. But we've been coming back to theater and performance actually. So yeah, actually, if you're a poet, reach out.
Still,
Multi-art form.
yeah.
Awesome. For anyone left in the call, if you would like to fill out our survey, that would be great. Let us know. Any other topics that you want to hear from Nava? We definitely want to continue this series and maybe do another iteration. So let us know anything we can improve on. Would be grateful for any feedback.
Yeah, I'd second that. I mean, even myself as a mid-career or late career, I don't know what I am, but professional practice is professional practice. So, I would love to hear from other late career, or sorry, established artists, about their journey so that even emerging and mid-career can learn from other artists at the top as well and share hints and
Mm.
tips and bits. So I think this series is critical. Like we had this conversation offline that, I was taught very little at art school. So I didn't even get this information at art school. And I guess we all want to deliver information that we wish we had, and that can expedite our professional practice and learn from our mistakes and all that kind of stuff. So I really hope this series does continue for artists and arts workers in all levels of their career, because they're super important resources. I wish I had one, and
Same.
also for people who are geographically challenged, be it
Mm.
Western Sydney or regional or remote or Aboriginal communities. So
Mm.
these professional practice archives really are really critical, and I really ask the public, anyone who's enjoyed this talk or they've heard something that's like, oh yeah, okay, that's great to hear. Like, please share this link to people who you think is a free resource. It doesn't cost anything. It's just
Yeah.
a bit of effort and thought to send it to the right person. And yeah, it's actually all of our community's responsibility to make sure all these hints and tips get to the right people. So
Yeah,
share away.
yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
please do.
And we've got all the sessions. So this one will be published, I believe, in a few weeks, maybe. We'll try to do it ASAP. But at this
Yeah.
point, I believe the pre-emerging and emerging are definitely published, and mid-career will be coming out very soon. Uh,
Mid-career is now published. Apologies for the delay on that. But we'll get this one captioned and published as soon as possible. And I think we'll try to send out an email to let everyone know that it's all up and you can watch the series in one go if you want.
Beautiful. But thank you
Um,
so much,
thank
Jason.
you.
You've been absolutely incredible. And thank you so much, my mad scientist, evil mastermind, Emma Pham, for cooking up this program in a lab somewhere. Like we were like,
Yeah, I mean, like Jason said, like this is what we would have wanted to watch or like to listen to when we were in school, and to know that we have people in our community who are living representations that you can have a career in the arts. It's not easy, but it's spiritually fulfilling, and you should be able to work in conditions, fair working conditions where you can thrive and
Mm.
continue making art. So
yeah.
yeah, this has been a dream to do.
And
Thank you,
also
Jason.
for all those parents out there that told their kids, don't be an artist, you're never going to make any money. Well, show them
No.
this, because I'm now 20 years plus self-funded artist, making
Amazing.
challenging work. So, and as soon as my parents saw me on television and the press in the paper, they're like, oh my God, my son, the artist. We're so proud, so famous, so proud. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember when
It's
Anyway,
like when when they hear everyone else validating you, they're like, "Oh, I was supporting you the whole time. What are you talking about?"
yeah. I always knew you'd make it.
Yeah,
And yeah, just to
amazing.
answer someone in the chat, they're on the NAVA and UTP websites currently. So you just search up like area coded NAVA, you'll find all of them.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, thank you guys so much. One
thank
and
you.
done. We will be back soon. Yeah, hope everyone has an incredible day. And again, thank you so much, Jason, for your generosity and yeah, it's such a dream. Yeah, listening to
Very honored.
this session. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
pleasure. Yeah, thanks for the platform. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, really.
No, beautiful. You're very welcome.
Right.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. Yeah, we will see you guys at the next one.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.